You're listening to the Renegade Blitz Podcast, a podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz. I'm Polk with Chris Ward and Brandon Walker here for the first recap podcast of the 2021 season. And guys, how are we feeling? The Steelers are 1-0. Chris, me and you did not expect it to be a Steelers win, but certainly we're happy to be a part of the many people that got this one wrong.
We both had them lose, and I had Buffalo winning 30-20. Yeah, the Steelers, they really showed some guts there in the second half and came back 20 unanswered points, and they ended up winning 23-16.
It's the classic Steelers second half. You write them off in halftime, and then they come back and smack you right on your face and saying, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is what we do.
They earned the win, but I will get into it. I think that Buffalo kind of blew it with some of the play calls that they had in the second half, because I think they rested on their lawyers from last season.
Yeah, let's talk about one of those play calls. On a 4th and 1, they get the most funky dog maneuver, is what I like to call it, in which basically they just pitched it back 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage when you have Josh Allen, who's shown that he can run and he can fight for that 1 yard. They decided to get a little bit funky out there, and the Steelers said that we smell very clean.
That was a bizarre call there on 4th and 1. I thought he delayed, and then he I don't even know what to call it, a pitch back, or he threw it back. And Cam Sutton, he read it perfectly. He said that they've seen that formation on film, and they're looking for a fullback dive, fake pitch out. And credit to Cam Sutton, who had a great game yesterday, and he sniffed that out, and that really swung the momentum for the Steelers after that play.
Yeah, when I saw that play, I would have. We're better off just trying to do the 5 wide receiver thing, or just do a quarterback draw. But I would have punted the ball in that situation. And even on the previous drive when they went for it on 4th down, I would have took my chances and punted the ball, because it was a defensive struggle up to that point. The Bills' defense was playing lights out.
Yeah, the Bills, as we had Greg said on, and he said, man, that they like going for it on 4th down, and that's what showed on Sunday. And I didn't really mind them. I just, the play call on that 4th and 1 was just, I don't know. They should have ran it with Josh Allen, or maybe even, I thought they should have gave Singletary some more carries. He saw that on that one drive where he really got them down there for a field goal. And I thought they were a little too pass happy at times, Buffalo. And I mean, they really love spreading it out, with 3 wide receiver sets, 4 wide receiver sets. And I thought they ran that quarterback draw with Josh Allen a little bit too much. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan, you have to be upset about that loss, because the Bills really blew it. I thought, credit to the Steelers that they fought and did all they can to win that game, but some questionable coaching decisions there by Sean McDermott and the Bills.
Yeah, I want to talk about one thing. Zach Moss was a scratch for that game, and that was really important because Moss had a good game last year, and I think that played a role with a lot of what they wanted to do out there. I think they wanted to split it more between Singletary and Moss, and obviously with Moss being out there, that changed up their plans. But yeah, Singletary probably should have got a little bit more carries with them. I think that's going to be a learning lesson for the Bills, in which they had to strive for a little bit more balance. Yes, Josh Allen can throw them out of any situation right now, and there was a few times in this game that he did do that, but I think they're going to learn from that and try to at least establish the run a little bit more better next time against the Steelers, or really against any other opponent over the next 16 weeks from now.
Yeah, I was just questioning it. He had 11 carries. He had what did he average? He had 72 yards. So that's about 6.5 yards a carry. I do believe they just rested on their lawyers. If you're paying a guy $258 million over the next 5-6 years, I guess you have to make sure he wins, but he's just trying to do everything by himself. And you can't do it against the Steelers defense.
And let's talk about the pass rush for the Steelers. According to Next Gen Stats, Pittsburgh blitzed on just 2 of 54 dropbacks, 3.7%. It is the second lowest rate recorded by a Steelers defense since 2016. And by the way, last year, they blitzed on 39.6% of dropbacks, the third highest percentage in the league. When you think of the Steelers defense, you think of this aggressive, in-your-face pressure. You know they're coming every single time. And the Steelers were doing it with 4 rushers. And I want to give a hat tip out there to Melvin Ingram, who, Chris, you retweeted the video on the Renegade Blitz podcast account where I said that was just a pass rush masterclass. This guy wasn't just doing bull rushes or just spin moves. This guy was coming on delayed blitzes all the way inside the gap of the garden and the tackle, and the guy was just having his way out there all day. But what does this stat mean to you in terms of the Steelers' future prospects in the pass rush?
First they put a clinic on there against the Bills' offensive line, the Steelers' front seven, and this is without Stephon Tuitt as well. And according to NFL on CBS, Hayward had 12 pressures, which Pro Football Focus said that was the most across the league. T.J. Watt had 8, and Melvin Ingram also had 8. I think they have the best front seven in the league. I mean, they have so much depth there up front, and like I mentioned, just wait till Tua comes back. But I posted before the season. This was during the preseason where I said I didn't think they were going to miss a beat without Bud Dupree with Melvin Ingram, Alex Highsmith, and T.J. Watt. And so far through one game, that's really what showed is that this unit has a ton of potential, and they're very talented.
Yeah, they have a bunch of talent. Highsmith has some pressures. Ingram was a beat. T.J. Watt with 2 sacks. You know how many times that Buffalo got called for holding in the first half?
How much?
4 times.
4 times. Wow. I think
4 times on the offensive line.
Overall, I think in the game, T.J. Watt, I think I read that he drew three holding penalties, and it could have been a lot more. I mean, that Buffalo line they had a long day, and there was a ton of holding going on.
Man, you think about that with the Steelers last year, it was an adventure and a half to get a holding penalty for TJ Watt or largely anyone in the linebackers room last year. So now that they're getting this holding penalty, at least in game 1, you have to feel good about that. I don't know if maybe they looked at the entire breadth of the Steelers pass rush last year because they had Dupree on a contract franchise tag, and then they had Watt out there, and you have all these other guys. I wonder if the officials were like, we have no sympathy for you, just go fight through it. But now I guess maybe they in a way kind of underestimate them. It's a weird thing to say, but sometimes these weird things play out, and you just go, well, why did you do that now and didn't do that last year?
I just think they were getting beat so bad that it was just so clear and obvious. And you're right that they probably won't get those holding calls, throughout the year because sometimes it's just the right referee or certain situations where it plays out well, and it did for them on Sunday. But I really think that especially the Bills tackles, they were just getting abused all game.
And shout out to the secondary too with James Pierre. I got his name right now, so I know his name. And Sutton, they did their thing. They held it down. Every time you saw it, they called their names out. They were making a play.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. And also, you have to give a shout out to Trey Norwood, the rookie coming in there. And he really made a difference in terms of how they deployed Minkah Fitzpatrick in that game.
Yeah, Trey Norwood, I thought overall he played pretty well. I know you mentioned earlier that one play, Sanders had him beat. He burned him, and Josh Allen misfired. He overthrew him. It would have been a touchdown. Josh Allen had a couple overthrows, but overall, Norwood, he did have a pass breakup in the end zone later in the game. But I thought overall the secondary played really well. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick, he had 10 total tackles. He had that one play where he's a real great run stop. That was the play before Sutton stopped on 4th and 1. I thought, Terrell Edmonds, did pretty good in coverage. I thought also, I think overall, just a great performance by the secondary.
Right. I mean, your great pass rush equals great secondary play. That's work hand in hand. And another thing about Watt, they lined him up all over the place. I saw him in the middle a few times.
Yeah, they really did change up a lot of how they deployed their players, and that's what I want to see from the Steelers. It's not where you line them up best. It's where you can line them up where they don't expect it. And I think Ingram played a ton in that. And another thing we could talk about with Watt, do you guys agree with this? TJ Watt's going to pay off that 5-year deal in at least year one, because I'd say through game one, $80 million guaranteed, pretty much, yeah, that's worth it.
Yeah.
TJ Watt, he's a different breed there. Just like Tomlin mentioned that he didn't really expect him to, warm up to get into football shape, or he was going to have a setback on Sunday. And, he showed he looked like the all pro player that he is.
He's just a special breed. Just like his brother, they just know how to play. Like I said, I had no problems. I had a problem with the Steelers not giving them the money that sooner, but they have their philosophy on how they do things. They want 6 Super Bowls. But what I always say is this: for a guy like that, you pay him whatever you need. You make exceptions for him.
Yeah, he's an exceptional talent. I think in terms of that, there's a lot of things that he said, like he left money off the table. He's still the highest paid defensive player in the league, but he left money off the table. And games like that, he's had 7 games of 2 or more sacks since 2019. And again, he had 2 sacks on Sundays. So games like that, yeah, he's worth every single penny of guaranteed money. You can't really deny how long it took for him to do that, and he just basically gave the Steelers a gift, at least in terms of guaranteed money.
There's nothing that you really can say about that. You know what I mean? What more can we add with that? That's all I'm saying. Like, I think he could break the sack record this year. Bold prediction.
That's a very bold prediction, considering that J.J. Watt is helping out Chandler Jones in Arizona, who got 5 sacks this week, so against Tennessee. So that's a bold prediction, because the guy's already got 5 sacks and it's only week 1.
Well, I think he's going to be more consistent as the year goes along. I mean, more. It's going to go ebb and flow. I think TJ Watt's going to be more consistent. I think he's going to have a couple 2-3 sack games. Remember, he played Cincinnati twice, so I think he can get at least 6 sacks off Joe Burrow alone. But yet, then again, you got to play Cleveland's offensive line. You got to play Baltimore's offensive line, which they lost one of their tackles to the Chiefs. But point being, I think he's going to have like 3 to 4 multi-sack games this year.
That's a bold prediction. I think that will happen. I think that will happen a lot sooner than we think. I'll add on to that and say he'll do it within 10 games. 3-4 of those multi-sack games within 10.
Like, I think he might get 2 next week. Remember that offensive line we'll get to them, because we'll be with the preview. We'll see tonight, because that offensive line, they lost a few pieces, and that line look a little shaky at this point. But we'll see tonight how they go with Vegas.
Yeah, but I think in short, we can all agree that TJ Watt's new contract is just like CM Punk's and AEW. The year's going to be paid off. He's going to pay off that contract much sooner than we think. He might be asking for more money in a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. But I want to talk about one more interesting thing with the linebacker situation. Did you guys notice that Devin Bush actually had the communicator's dot on his helmet this week?
Oh, I didn't take notice. I know that before they were saying that it was going to be Joe Schober, but maybe they changed that. I don't know. I didn't notice that.
Yes, he had the green dot.
I see that, because he's I think the reason why they was trying to go with Schobert with it is because I don't know how he was going to come back from that knee injury. I think that's why they just wanted to use Schobert just to get him up to speed, just in case Bush doesn't have that game shape like he wants to at the start of the season. But it appears that he is on his game and ready to go and be the leader on the defense that they so desire. Well, Watt's the leader of the defense, but you know what I'm saying. The middle linebackers make all the communication calls to make everything go together.
That's what I wanted to ask you right there in terms of that. Do you think it was like a wake-up call, a challenge for Bush?
I don't think it was a wake-up call because he showed flashes last year before the injury and showed potential. Now he's the better player than Schobert. I just think it was him getting up to speed with the knee and see if he's fully healthy and ready to contribute like he was more than he already has this year and pick up where he left off.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I thought, for his first time out there, first regular season game from recovering from that ACL injury, I thought he did pretty good. I thought, him and Schobert, I thought did well in coverage. I mean, there wasn't that many passes over the middle, really. I mean, Allen did have a couple passes through the seam, I guess, or that one big one, but that wasn't really their area. But all things considered, I thought it was a pretty good performance by him. I didn't really see anything glaring issues.
Well, now that we've talked all about the pass coverage, at least for the Steelers, final thoughts of the defense there. Has this game given you more confidence in the Steelers secondary going forward, specifically at slot corner and the other boundary opposite Joe Hayden?
I think Sutton showed a lot. I mean, that was a big question mark going into this game. And I think they have a real true number 2 cornerback, and you can kick him into the slot. I mean, they have they played Norwood in the slot, and they also had Millette in there at times, and also who's the other one?
Pierre.
Oh yeah, they also had Pierre on the outside. So I thought they had a great they have a great depth there in the secondary right now, and they all played well.
Well, I have faith in the secondary. Mostly is because, like I said before, the pass rush. That pass rush is a secondary's best friend. If the pass rush stays consistent, stays healthy, then you only got to cover for about 3 to 4 seconds. So, but the pass rush doesn't get there, then any secondary will look average. So, as long as the pass rush look good, the secondary will look good.
I think we have to give a lot more credit to the Steelers secondary in this game, especially when you look at the dropbacks per blitz with the Steelers. You think of that number much higher, and that typically tells me that the secondary was sticking to their man. Yes, the Cam Sutton give up a touchdown to Gabriel Davis, but he didn't let that affect them. I saw a lot more better defensive coverage out there. It felt like a better team in terms of pass coverage on Sunday. That wasn't the typical Steelers, like, we got to get to the quarterback no matter what. That was, we're just bringing in 4, because even TJ Watt had his hand down in the dirt occasionally, and they went into a 4-2-5 set. And it seemed like the Steelers were just like, yeah, we'll rush 4. We'll treat this like a 4-3 and have no issues at all.
Right. I'm going to go back to that touchdown pass to Gabriel Davis. I am not going to you shouldn't beat up Cameron Sutton.
They said Cameron Sutton was the guy.
I was going to say Cortland Sutton because the guy from the Broncos. But point being, there is no defense for a perfect throw.
Yeah, that was a perfect throw.
That was a perfect throw.
Greg Tomstad told us about one throw that Josh Allen made during the preseason that never made it off 8 feet off the ground. So there's no question. This guy can sling it. And you just have to go sometimes, just tip your cap defensively and go, we'll get him next time. And that was a we'll get him next time throw.
Yeah.
And defensive play there, because Sutton did well there. There was no issue with how he defended in that situation. Final thing before we move on into the offense And guys, I guess we have to give the special teams their prop this week. Outside that opening kick to Isaiah McKenzie, the special teams were special. And we have to give Danny Smith a lot more gum than what he has right now, whatever can last him an entire game, because Miles Killebrew was on that punt block and he just swiped it off his foot for the most part. And then there was Ulysses Gilbert III. He scooped it up for the score, and that was a critical touchdown. And if I recall correctly, would that be the game winner?
That was the game that put him up 20-10. I think that was the final, not the final straw, but that one was a big blow, a heavy blow.
That was play of the game, no doubt.
It was.
That was really what the difference was at the end of the game. When you look, they won by 7 points, and that was a big play there. Really nice setup there by Danny Smith. I was listening to the interviews earlier today, and Killebrew and Gilbert were saying that they were practicing that all week, and they actually did it on Tyler Matakevich, who's a former Steeler. He was, I guess, on that punt formation. He was like the left guard, and Killebrew crossed his face and got there, and he timed it perfectly and blocked that punt. And a great scoop and score for UG3 also, who, as Ty knows, a lot of Steeler fans were giving him some grief there because he was, he had two back injuries prior, and he didn't look too great in the preseason. But I mean, that's a big play for him.
Yeah, they needed that. They needed that play right there, and I think that's going to give him some confidence because he's a guy that can fight for that inside linebacker rotation, especially with Spillane's injury to his shin before the game during pregame warmups, and they have a rookie in Buddy Johnson who they like a lot out there, and of course they have Schobert and Devin Bush, but of course you never know if someone goes down there. So if they can get that guy healthy, that's going to be very important for their middle linebacker depth.
Yeah, that would be good, but you just need one of those guys in the back of the roster that'll come through with one play for you. That's all you need. I want to see more consistent special teams play, especially in the coverage unit, because they have been prone to poor lapse of coverage. And there was another run that they had. I think they had not a kickoff on a punt return. I believe they almost broke another one. So we'll see. They have to work on that coverage skills. But as far as field goal money with Boswell, you got the black punter there. He turned in a heck of a performance. I think he might be one of a top half of the league punter already. And they can make plays on blocking kicks. So we'll see what they can do on special teams, because I think they're going to need to make a few plays this year to get where they need to go, because there's going to be a lot of swing games with the Pittsburgh Steelers this year as you look at their schedule.
I know there was one punt with Isaiah McKenzie. He had like a shoulder issue in which he basically had to force himself to call a fair catch. And that's where the announcers are going like, yeah, he had a lane right up the middle, and then he's walking back to the locker room due to that shoulder injury. But he came back into that game, so I guess it was just a stinger.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty windy in Buffalo yesterday, too. And, Harvin, he did pretty well, but he did have like a 30-some yard punt.
Yeah, early off the side of his foot.
Yeah, but it didn't end up any points. That's when, after that, on the next possession, TJ Watt had that forced fumble. But, credit to Chris Boswell for that 45-yard field goal. Real clutch. The crowd was going crazy there in Buffalo, and he really silenced them after that kick. And, he's been really consistent over the last few years.
Far cry away from that 2018 where everyone wanted him gone because he clearly had something wrong with him. It was a hernia or a groin injury that really did him in 2018, and the Steelers have been proven that their faith is well set with him. Now let's move on to the offense, and guys, I want to get your thoughts on the offensive line. There was a prediction before the season made by me that I felt that in terms of run blocking, this team is going to be fine. Pass blocking was going to be an issue, and at least for the lion's share of this game, it was run blocking that was the issue, and pass blocking that it wasn't the best, but it was still a lot better than what you would have expected during this game. And there's also been talks about Chukwuekorfor potentially losing his job at right tackle and then bringing back in Zach Banner at right tackle. So in terms of the tackles, do you believe there should be a change? Because Dan Moore is fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, Trooks, man, we spoke before the season how we're worried about him, and I have to go back and watch the full game, but just watching it the first time, he did struggle in pass blocking, and the whole offensive line struggled in the run blocking department. But they'll have to wait for a couple these next 2 games, and hopefully he'll be healthy then. But I think once Banner gets cleared, I think he will go up there at right tackle because Dan Moore did pretty well. He did struggle a little bit early on. I think that was kind of like the entire offense, really, though. But
right.
I still expect a change here soon. Kendrick Green, I thought, played pretty well. You saw in that one end around, he was leading the way for Claypool that ended up in a 25-yard gain. Trey Turner, he had a big block. I saw on Tremaine Edmonds on a screen pass to Johnson. So with the offensive line, unless it's like glaring, I have to go back and look and see. But it was an okay performance. Like you mentioned, they struggled run blocking and pass blocking was kind of like it was okay.
I think the problem they did allow 2 sacks, but they, I think, overall played pretty well again in the second half because you don't get for scoring 4 consecutive drives. You don't have a bad if your offensive line is crap, play like crap because I think they are starting to open up holes for Harris in the second half. But my thing is this: the run blocking was terrible because you notice on that 3rd and 1, they spread it out and threw the ball. So what they're doing is using Ben as to protect the offensive line, like doing screen passes and end arounds, like they're trying to hide the line. And at some point, they're going to have to step it up, build that chemistry. And if it takes Zach Banner going in for Chooch, I think that's the move they may have to make because I think the Rousseau was getting on him a little bit, and Esperanza for the Bills, he was getting knocked back.
Yeah, Chooks. We're not. We have one of our film guys, Max Rosenfeld, and on here sometimes. And he's always, especially last year, he wasn't impressed with Chuksikor for at right tackle, and they were even thinking about lining him up at left tackle this year before they made the switch with Dan Moore Jr. But yeah, I think Dan Moore Jr. I think he's going to grow as the season continues, and for his first time out, he did give up that sack, but I think overall he didn't do bad. But here's one stat from Austin Gale from Pro Football Focus. He said Najee Harris was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 70% of his carries, the highest percentage of any running back with 10-plus carries in week 1. So that needs to be fixed, rather soon there with the offensive line because they need to run the ball consistently with this offense.
Right.
Yeah, there was one thing that I just didn't expect with it. It's from what Greg told us was that this could be a Najee Harris breakout game in week 1, and then the Bills' run defense was up to snuff, and that was kind of oh man, that's not a good thing for the Steelers right now if they can't run on Buffalo, but they did just enough in terms of everything like that, and Najee did get a couple solid gains, nothing worse. I mean, it's clear that off of his skill, he can do way more than James Conner, Anthony McFarland, Benny Snell, and even Kalen Ballage and all these other guys. But in terms of that, they have to allow more good blocking for him on the run side because this zone scheme was designed with Najee in mind. And they just need this to get going because that helps out Najee so much and it opens up the entire world for this offense.
They got that guy. They have what's his name? Mitchell Schwartz. He's still available, isn't he?
He's still available, but I think he's probably going to be the first guy out. Any offensive lineman that gets hurt in this league is definitely going to be the springboard for Schwartz. I don't think he's just going to be sitting on a bench, especially with what he could command out there. It's not much. It's still not bench money.
Right. Yeah, as Greg mentioned, he thought Harris was going to have a big game in the passing game, and it looked like there was some miscommunication there with Ben and Harris at time. And you saw that one time Ben kind of got in Harris's face a little bit about it was a one check down where he didn't turn around fast enough.
In the red zone, the one in the red zone.
I think it was early in the game. It was definitely the first half.
He had a couple like that.
Yeah, there was a couple. Yeah.
And there was a couple with Deontay Johnson too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because Ben had to coach him up. But one thing about Ben, he will go back to you. He's not that. It's hard for him to give up on a young receiver with talent. So I think this is going to be more of this season is going to be the best example of his leadership for this offense for them to get where they need to go. You're dealing with a lot of youngsters, going to have a lot of inconsistency. So it's going to be up to Ben and his leadership to get the job done for him.
It was an okay game for me. Obviously, the whole entire offense was abysmal in the first half, but I thought he was clutch. When they needed that, they were only up there by a touchdown there at the end, and they were able to get a field goal to really ice the game. He had two huge completions to one to Juju Smith-Schuster, and the other one was to Claypool on 3rd and 7. So I thought he was good when they needed him to be, and that's all you need from Ben at times.
The Steelers put it in exactly where I want Ben Roethlisberger to have in terms of pass attempts. I need him in the 30s. If you must put him in the 40s, I don't want him in the 50s and 60s. I feel the 30s most likely is a Steelers win.
How many times did he throw exactly?
32.
32. That's good because, Josh Allen threw the ball 51 times. I'm not going to go back to him, but 51 times is, you can't be throwing the ball in the 50s and expect to win.
Yeah,
even in this league.
Yeah, Ben completed 56.2% of his passes for 188 yards, 1 TD, no interceptions, and a quarterback rating of 83.9. So, he didn't turn the ball over at all, but, like Ty mentioned, it wasn't a glamorous, statistical performance for him.
Well, he did technically turn it over, but fortunately there was a flag on that play.
Yeah, and some Buffalo fans I saw weren't too happy about that. They thought it was a weak penalty.
Right now, at least with the Steelers, and you mentioned a little bit with Claypool. There was one thing that Greg said during the podcast is that he was worried about the corner that didn't cover Claypool, and that would be Levi Wallace. Yeah, but even with it, Trey Davis a few times got abused by the Steelers receivers. I remember a Moss by Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster going Corvette on him. But, that's one of the things with the Steelers wide receivers. There's a variety in terms of that. And all in all, I think they did a great job. Even Ebron, he had one drop, but that's whatever. But also Freiermuth made an appearance with a big first down catch. So all in all, you just want them to make plays whenever they get the ball in their hands. And there wasn't those frustrating drops this week that killed drives so far. There was a few, but they didn't kill drives, fortunately.
Right. I said they played a relatively, it been ugly, but it was a clean ugly. You get what I'm saying? No turnovers, no critical drops, no critical penalties either.
Yeah, that's the important thing.
Yeah. There was a couple weak penalties. They took advantage of Levi Wallace because he got called for a couple of pass interference penalties. So I would have liked them to expose him a little bit more deep. But then again, those are the breaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I never thought that they would miss Josh Norman like that. I mean, Josh Norman must have went back into the time machine against the Steelers last year because, man, it was a different secondary out there. They still have those safeties, but it felt like the Steelers were less afraid to attack out there, especially when their nickel corner Johnson got hurt.
Yep.
I think Claypool showed that. I think he's the number one wide receiver on the team. I mean, especially in that second half, he had big plays on, he had that 22-yard reception down the sidelines where he mossed Tre'Davious White, and then the next drive he had a 25-yard end around. So both of those plays ended up being resulting in a field goal, and then he drew that defensive pass interference, which was 26 yards. And then a couple plays later, Deontay Johnson had that 5-yard grab. And then he had that huge third down reception that set up the Chris Boswell 45-yard field goal. So he really came on there in the second half.
Right. So you think you believe that Claypool is your clear number one right now?
I believe.
Over Juju.
It's either him or Johnson. I don't think Juju's the number one, but I think it would be Claypool's number one. Right?
I think so.
I think he's just purely more talented than the rest of the receivers. And, that's not to take any away from the Deontay Johnson's incredible route runner, and Juju's great at, moving the chains and, gaining extra yardage after contact. But I just think Claypool, he's so physical and so big. I mean, and he has the speed. I think he's just a complete package.
Yeah, I think he reminds you a little bit. He has that DK Metcalf in him. He has the speed. He has the size. He's 6'5", 240. Am I right? You guys know height, weight, but these speed more than I do.
Like 230. I think he's 230. I don't think he's that big. That's on Kelvin. 6'5", right? He's tall, but I don't think he's that big. That's going a little bit on Kelvin Benjamin.
Okay. All right. He's 6'5", 230. I think he's the best receiver. I think by the end of year's end, this is going to be your pass catching order. Claypool, Johnson, Penn State Pat. They're going to be your core three guys right there.
Well, you're taking out Juju.
Yeah, I was like, you think Juju's going to be behind Freiermuth?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's huge right there.
Believe in Penn State Pat.
I believe in him too, but I still think that Juju's like having a 3 tight end set out there with how he likes to be physical. He plays more like a tight end than you think of a wide receiver at times, and that's the Hines Ward in him a little bit. So I think it's going to be hard to knock him off of that wide receiver number 3 slot, but really, in terms of all three, it's 1A, 1B, 1C. It's who the defense wants to take a little bit off of in terms of defending each possession, each drive.
I think because I know Claypool will be your do everything guy, your big play threat. Johnson will be your route runner. Freiermuth got his name right. All right, Freiermuth will be your red zone threat because they're gonna go 3-4 wide receivers. Pittsburgh has a deep wide receiving group. You can't cover everybody, and then by year's end, he's gonna emerge. I have faith in him.
I mean, that's just a lot to take off of a guy in Juju Smith-Schuster is Mr. Chug It Out, Mr. Tough Yards, Mr. Yard After the Catch whenever the Steelers are able to get their full offensive complement together, because that's the one missing ingredient. I think Juju after the catch is better than what people think out there, and also he can get those hard charging. They have 2 Mr. Third Downs for their wide receiver group, and tight ends are traditionally third down. So it's like, in a way, they have 3 or 4 of them, and that's a good thing to have with this offense when the rushing attack gets rolling and when Ben gets the time that he should get.
But he'll be the second best tight end out of this class.
Final thoughts on this game. What would be the one word that you would put for this game?
Relentless. I'll say I thought they were resilient also. I'll go with relentless, but I thought they showed a lot of grit coming back there in the second half. They were only down 10 points, at halftime, and they got the ball. So, I wasn't really that worried. I just, this offense got to pick it up. And, I thought they showed that on their first drive there. And the defense played amazing. I don't understand why people are freaking out about Tomlin kicking the field goal there to make it 10-6. I didn't even think it was I thought they needed the points. The defense was playing amazing. I didn't really think it was that big of a deal that they didn't try to go for a touchdown or whatever. I thought Tomlin was playing it safe. They needed points, and the defense, they didn't really give up that much. They had that one drive there where Josh Allen snuck that ball in there to Davis for the touchdown. But yeah, I'll just say it was a scrappy win. It was a team win, as Ben Roethlisberger mentioned. They'll have to get out of the gates faster because not every week they're gonna be as fortunate where their defense will be able to keep them in the game and only be down 10 points at halftime.
Dang, you said relentless. Well, I'd say they persevered, going to tough environment. Bills Mafia going wild. They haven't had. I think during the playoff game they had a crowd, but they have first time in a couple years they've been in full effect. Probably one of the biggest games that they had in a while that they've been able to go to. They went in there, got punched. I wouldn't say punched in the mouth because they was doing some punching too. They fell behind, but it's a classic Mike Tomlin victory. Persevering, finding the way, finding a way to win. I mean, I think Buffalo kind of helped them out a little bit, but that's neither here or there. But they came in there and they earned a win. You got out of the stadium with a victory. And that's all you need to ask. That's all you ask for. And that's going to set the tone for the rest of the season. I'm going to tell you this. Chris is going to love this. This Steeler team has a little bit of 2008 in them. Get what I'm talking about, Chris?
You talking about the defense?
I'm talking about the overall team.
What are you talking about?
It.
Offensive line?
The offensive line questions, strong defense. Well, Ben's a lot older, but they had it. Just feels like a 2000. They feel like I'm not saying that they're going to win the Super Bowl here. We ain't going that far right now, but they don't they look like the 2018. A little bit. Don't they remind you of that, Chris?
I'm not going to put anything like that right now, especially in week one, because we tried to crown this team during the Tennessee game, after the Tennessee game last year. So I'm going to be careful with crowning them anything right now. So that's just how I feel, but it's only one game. Sorry, Chris.
I know what you mean, Brandon, with the defense and how the offensive line's, set up, but I think
I'm not saying
it's too early to tell right now.
I'm not saying that they're a Super Bowl. I'm not saying that. Don't they remind you of that type of team? Strong defense, questionable offensive line, Ben making plays just enough to win games.
Okay, from that aspect in that week
yes.
one. Okay, I'll agree with you. In that week one win, but we'll have to see going
yeah, we don't know what this Steeler team is right now, but my one word is, I'll say this. You were talking about punches in the mouth. I'd say to describe this was slobber knocker. It really was a slobber knocker in terms of, but it wasn't the traditional slobber knocker. I want to say this was a slobber knocker to the entire league to let them know that this is still the Pittsburgh Steelers, and with Mike Tomlin at the helm, somehow, some way, they're going to find a way. You just can't explain it with this team, but they will find a way to be competitive in the AFC. And who knows, maybe this will look at this game as something they build on towards another Super Bowl run. But right now, this was a slobber knocker to the entire league, saying that this is still the Pittsburgh Steelers. And a winning record, at least for the season, is still a definite possibility with this team.
it's only week one. We'll have to see how the rest of the season goes. But I mean, that's a huge win for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to go on the road,
Right.
hostile environment, and win there. I just hope the Steelers keep it up here at Heinz Field, their home opener against the Raiders. We'll have to see how Las Vegas does tonight, but I think it'll be a big letdown if they were to lose their home opener after that big win.
One thing, I thought the Bills was a little bit nervous too going out throughout that. They weren't. It didn't seem like they were themselves. Because one thing this is the first time in about 25, 30 years that they have expectations.
Yeah.
Full house too. It's a lot of things that was right.
It was. I think they was feeling a little bit of pressure.
I think coaching lost them the game. I have to say Sean McDermott lost them that game.
I think Brian Dable lost that game.
Or who?
Yeah. Brian Dable lost in that game because it was. I don't know, because they had another running back, speedy run, Burrito. He had a couple nice runs over there around there too. Remember, Buffalo came up with 371 yards.
I don't know how their system works, but wouldn't Sean McDermott have to approve that fourth down call, or do you think Dable just called it?
I think in terms of because McDermott is a defensive coach, and typically I tend to put it like this in terms of like the head coach's specialty, unless it's something extreme like Brian Billick with the Ravens. I tend to think that whenever it's a coach's specialty, they'll go defend that side. I've always had a feeling that in terms of Mike Tomlin's the true defensive coordinator, and the defensive coordinator they have now, Keith Butler, is, while he has a lot of say with it, it's more or less he's putting into Tomlin's thing in there. Yes, they have Leslie Frazier, who was a head coach in this league, and he does do well. But I think in terms of that, there was trust with Dable in that situation, and just Greg said it best. He's like a 12-year-old playing Madden sometimes with how he likes to put out his offensive sets, and just sometimes it just doesn't work out that well. You try to be too creative for your own good, and that could be a thing in the future the Steelers see with Matt Canada, but right now we're loving life.
I know McDermott.
I'm telling you, no. I think this is one thing. I think it was the McDermott's decision to go for it, but Dable called the play.
Yeah,
that could be true.
In the post-game interview, McDermott took blame for it. Obviously he wasn't going to throw his offensive coordinator under the bus. He's the head coach, so the buck stops with him. But I just don't get that fourth down call. That's pretty much
that one. And then they went for it before when it was at the 35. I would have took the chance with the field goal, but I know it was like 52 yards. Yeah, but it's in Buffalo when I would have punted the ball. And
it's Buffalo in September, though. It's a different thing if it was October, November. Brandon, before we go, you wanted to talk a little bit about the Raiders game, so give me like your little mini preview of what you're looking for there.
Looking for as far as the Ravens or the Raiders
Steelers.
Okay. Because they're playing and they're about to play right now. I'm looking for the offensive line to play a lot better, because this is a weaker front. Basically better play on the line of scrimmage. Let's see how they do on both sides of the line. I'm also looking for, I think this is going to be a more structured system that John Gruden's implying. So Derek Carr is not going to sail a whole lot of passes. So the secondary is going to actually have a more difficult test than what they saw yesterday, in my opinion. I know it sounds weird, but due to the structure of the system and Derek Carr, he's not going to beat himself. So, and also we're going to test their run defense too, because they didn't really get tested. They did allow the Steelers allow 6 yards of carry to Buffalo yesterday, and that's not really been talked about. So they do need to shore up that run defense.
We'll find out more about the Raiders after their game on Monday, as we'll talk to someone connected to the Raiders, be it a blogger or reporter. That's all for us here. For Chris Ward and Brandon Walker, I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz. Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. Our podcast is available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeart, and Spotify.